Order. Good morning, everyone. I'd like to call the Public Bills Committee for March 2nd, 2026 to order. I'd like to welcome everyone to One Government Place. My name is Scott Armstrong, Attorney General and Minister of Justice, and I will be the chair for today's meeting. I'd ask that each committee member introduce themselves today, and we will start with the government members.
Good morning, Tim Mouthett, MLA for Bedford Basin.
Good morning, Brad McGowan, MLA, Cole Harbour, Dartmouth.
Good morning, Rick Burns, MLA for Hammonds Plains, Lucasville.
Good morning, Julie Van Exen, MLA for King South.
Ian Rankin, Timberley Prospect.
Good morning, Derek Mumbercat, Sydney, Member 2.
Quay, my name is Paul Wozni. I represent Sackville Cobequid, and my pronouns are he, him.
Good morning, I'm Krista Gallagher. I represent Halifax Chebucto, and I use she, her pronouns.
I'll also ask members of the Legislative Council to introduce themselves as well.
Gordon Hebb, Counsel to the Committee.
Genevieve Harvey, Legislative Counsel.
Thank you. To start, I'd like to address some housekeeping items. I'd ask that everyone in the room turn off your phones or put it on silent. In case of emergency, please use the Granville Street exit and walk up to Grand Parade. I'd ask that everyone in attendance remain respectful to avoid indicating approval or disapproval of what is being said and to refrain from any disorderly behavior. Anyone exhibiting disorderly behavior may be asked to leave. Taking pictures or video by anyone other than the accredited media is not permitted. Finally, presenters are not to use any props. The agenda for today, listing in the order in which presenters will be provided to speak, is available for viewing on the small table near the door. All presenters today were required to provide prior notification to the Legislative Office that they were speaking on the bill. We will proceed from that list. All submissions on a bill that are received via email until the time the bill was reported back to the House or in person during the Public Bills meeting will be given to library staff to be posted online. Submissions received after a bill has been reported to the House are distributed electronically to members of the committee, but are not posted on the website. When your name is called, please come forward and state your name, how you would like the committee to address you, and the organization, if any, that you represent. In order to allow all of the scheduled presenters to speak, we'll be keeping track of time. Each presenter will receive a set amount of time to make your remarks, followed by answering any of the questions posed by committee members for up to 5 minutes. I will alert you when there's 1 minute left in your speaking time or when your time is up. The first 8 presenters will receive 10 minutes to speak, followed by up to 5 minutes of question time. Any presenters after that will receive 5 minutes to speak, followed by up to 5 minutes of questions. If presenters have handouts for committee members, please hand them to the pages for distribution. Each committee member may ask 1 question at a time per presenter with no follow-up. If there is extra time afterwards, I will allow a second question. I'd like to remind presenters and committee members that you need to be recognized by the chair before you speak so that your mic is on and your comments are captured. Our first bill today is Bill number 203. This bill has no presenters. I'd ask for a motion from the floor to report back to the House. So moved by MLA Van Exel.
I move that presentations on Bill number 203, House of Assembly Act, be concluded.
Okay, is there a seconder?
Yeah.
Oh, go ahead. Don't need a seconder, okay.
I move that bill.
I recognize, go ahead.
I move that Bill number 203, House of Assembly Act, be reported back to the House.
Okay, call for a vote. Okay, ready for the vote? All in favor? Opposed? Motion carried. Okay. Our next bill is Bill 205, Elections Act and the House of Assembly Act. There is no representation for this bill, so I'll look for a motion from the floor. Emily Van Exen.
I move that presentations on Bill number 205, Elections Act and House of Assembly Act, be concluded. I move that Bill number 205, Election Act and House of Assembly Act, be reported back to the House.
Ready for the vote? Okay. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion carried. Okay. Moving on now to bills with presenters. Our first bill is Bill 201, the Justice and Social Services Act. Our first presenter will be Robert Wright, President of the Nova Scotia College of Social Workers. Please come forward. Good morning, welcome.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Please introduce yourself and how you would like to be addressed.
My name is Robert Wright, pronouns he, him. I'm the president of the Nova Scotia College of Social Workers. And I can certainly just be addressed by Robert. It's fine.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So today you have 10 minutes, and they'll be followed by 5 minutes of questions. So your time is yours. Go ahead.
Thank you. We are particularly concerned with at the Nova Scotia College of Social Workers for the Regulated Health Professions Act. Though the college welcomes the opportunity to collaborate with government on social work regulation under this act, we have 2 outstanding concerns that we'd like to bring to the members' attention. The 2 concerns that we have is first that advocacy is an essential component of social work practice, not a separate or optional element of our practice, and the Act seeks to eliminate advocacy from the function of professions, or at least there is a risk that that may occur. And second, that there has not been significant consultation with the Nova Scotia College of Social Workers as the regulator of the social work profession, there had not been significant consultation before the implementation of this bill. Our approach to regulation is rooted in right touch regulation and advocacy to ensure that the public is safeguarded from harm while advancing equity, justice, and accountability. To support this approach, the Nova Scotia College has developed a comprehensive model for regulation, a framework for safer social work practice. We urge the government to consider this framework as a vital tool in fulfilling the Regulated Health Profession Act's broad mandate as we work together towards integration and a shared commitment to public safety and professional excellence. The college's regulatory approach is guided by a strong commitment to accountability, transparency, and adaptability in addressing emerging challenges in the field. This framework defines areas to enhance safety and protect from harm to ensure the safe and ethical delivery of social work services with a focus on Nova Scotia's most structurally vulnerable populations. And it is this responsibility that social workers have for those members of our public who are most structurally vulnerable that requires the profession to have the capacity to comment and advocate on those structures that impact members of the public. Key members of the regulatory framework that we currently implement is identifying areas for improvement, assessing the impact of various interventions, guiding strategic actions, and even monitoring practice development, and finally, promoting transparency and accountability. Our regulatory framework at the college is robust, intensive, and focused on protecting the public. This structured approach enables continuous growth within the profession while maintaining public confidence and upholding the values central to social work. And I say that again, values that are central to social work, not ancillary or voluntary. The social in social work requires that the profession have values that include advocacy for those we serve. Our regulatory philosophy is informed by two key philosophies: a right touch approach and aligned with the standards for good regulation that have been developed by the Nova Scotia Regulated Health Professions Network. This right touch approach is an approach to regulation that attempts to be minimally intrusive while maintaining high public trust. The other is the philosophy of addressing structural challenges within the social work profession. Because of the nature of social work, social workers frequently encounter systemic barriers that hinder their ability to provide safe and effective services to their clients. These challenges include high workloads, limited funding, moral stress and distress, and structural inequities. By advocating for different policy and program approaches to these structural barriers, the college ensures that social workers can deliver accountable, ethical, and powerful services to protect the public from harm and serve the public interest. The college's efforts are informed by pivotal reports and reviews that highlight areas of systemic reform. I'm sure members here are familiar with the many reports that have occurred over the years that have given us great insight into some of the structural harms and difficulties that have occurred in our province, including the inquiry into the Home for Coloured Children, the Turning the Tide report from the Mass Casualty Commission, Building the Future We All Deserve, a social policy framework, Reclaiming Power and Place, the final report of the National Inquiry into Missing and Murdered Indigenous Women and Girls, Creating the Future We All Deserve, a social policy framework for Nova Scotia, and many, many other government-sponsored or government-received and accepted reports that recognize a need for structural and systemic change in order to promote the public's best interest. Social workers are well placed in their day-to-day roles to be constantly advocating for the very changes that these reports highlighted in their daily work. Again, not as a voluntary or an ancillary function. These reports provide critical insights into systemic issues and opportunities for reform. So by integrating these findings into its safer social work framework, the college consistently seeks to advance safer, ethical practices while promoting the values of equity, justice, and community well-being. Finally, the college is steadfast in its commitment to advancing its public safety mandate to protect the public from harm and serve the public interest through meaningful collaboration with the government under the Regulated Health Professions Act by aligning our mission with the Act's mandate to protect the public from harm and serve the public interest. We aim to create a regulatory framework that not only ensures accountability, but also fosters trust and transparency for and within the social work profession. Of course, for that to occur, the college would need to be a recognized, essential partner in the implementation of the Act as it relates to social work, which would require a high degree of collaboration, integration, and cooperation, something that we have not seen yet in the proposal of this Act. We urge the government to embrace this framework as a vital tool in fulfilling the Act's vision. Together we can build a regulatory system that protects the public, empowers social workers to fulfill their responsibility and their professional mandate for advocacy, and advances the values of equity, justice, and community well-being. I want to thank you for the time to be here to say a few words to you this morning.
Great. Well, thank you very much for your presentation. We'll now open the floor up for 5 minutes of questioning. MLA Rankin.
Yeah, thank you, Robert, for the presentation. Question on process. So your second concern mentioned around lack of consultation. Just want to ask the question, when did you hear about this bill being brought forward, and what did consultation actually look like?
We heard really.
Sorry, that's my fault. It's my first time chairing this meeting. I recognize Mr. Wright.
Thank you. We were notified that social work would be included under the Regulated Health Professions, I could say late in the game. So there was no real consultation. We were just informed that the legislation would be, the bill would be going forward, and it would include the regulation of social work. So there was no significant consultation. That occurred just this past week.
Thank you. MLA Wozni.
Thank you, Chair. Mr. President, I'm wondering if you can outline for us, I guess, sort of ongoing, normal, run-of-the-mill relationship with the Department of Opportunities and Social Development. What structural, sort of usual channels exist for the minister and yourself to have discussion about areas of mutual concern? Just recognizing your comments that really no prior notice that you learned about this legislation in effect as it was being tabled. I don't want to assume that there is no ongoing, regularly structured dialogue. I wonder if you could paint us a picture about the ability of the college to liaise in an ongoing, meaningful way, and whether or not those opportunities were used by the minister in advance of tabling this legislation.
Mr. Wright.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'm the president of the college. Our executive director sits behind me, Alex Stratford. And we do have regular opportunities to be in touch with both the Minister of OSDP and the Deputy Minister. I've been the president of the college for just under 2 years, and I know last summer I met with the minister on a couple of occasions, and so those opportunities do present themselves, and we work cooperatively and collaboratively on a number of issues. So to have just a week's notice that we would be under the regulation was perhaps something that came out of left field, one would say.
Thank you. MLA Gallagher.
Thank you, Chair. I guess we don't have a lot of time, so the quick question is why? Why, like limited consultation, why do you think these changes are being proposed?
Mr. Wright.
The legislation seems to give government and empowers the minister to have quite sweeping powers. And, you know, the hallmark of a profession is that it is self-regulating. So, of course, the question would be, if under this act, health professionals are self-regulating, health professions are self-regulating, why the need for such sweeping powers for the minister? And will the minister use that power in a collaborative way to help to engage in conversation with the professions about things that may need to be addressed? Or will the power be used unilaterally to essentially fundamentally change the nature of a profession? As I say, advocacy, which is one of the issues that seems to be under threat in this legislation, is not something that is ancillary to social work. It is core to the profession. And we would be concerned that this legislation would seek to fundamentally change the nature of the profession.
Thank you. The time for questioning is up. We will thank you very much for your presentation today, and thank you for answering the questions. And we'll shift out and bring our next presenter on, and that will be Elizabeth McCarthy.
Thank you for the time, Mr. Chair.
You're welcome. You can submit them to the page. Who's say at the back. Page. Yep. Okay. Is Elizabeth McCarthy here? Welcome.
Hello.
Please introduce yourself and identify how you'd like to be called upon.
Certainly. I am Ms. Elizabeth McCarthy. My pronouns are she, her, and I am appearing as an individual today before the Law Amendments Committee.
Great. Thank you very much and welcome. You have 10 minutes. It'll be followed up by 5 minutes of questioning. So the floor is yours.
Thank you. I'm going to be addressing two different matters with regard to proposed different provisions under Bill 201. The first I would like to address with regarding the extension of Emergency Protection Acts, otherwise known as EPOs, from 30 days upon issuance to 1 year. And I'd like to speak to what my experience has been as an intimate partner violence survivor and how it's incredibly important that, that this proposed change go through. And then I'd like to circle back to actually some questions, if I could ask, just to clarify my understanding of another provision under Bill 201 regarding the publication restrictions under CFSA proceedings. I just want to make sure that I am clear on what that could mean in terms of the changes to the publication restrictions currently in place, and address concerns that I potentially have with that as an intimate partner for violence survivor. So I will start with the extension of EPOs from 30 days upon issuance to 1 year. I I'm here as an individual, as I mentioned. I do not represent any women's advocacy or intimate partner violence advocacy groups or social service organizations. However, I do work closely on my own behalf and also with in a support capacity for other survivors. And I wanted to appear here today upon learning of these proposed changes and on Friday of this past week, because I know there's a lot of survivors that perhaps don't have the capacity given their level of trauma to do so. On August 12th, 2016, I was between 17 and 18 months pregnant with my first and only child. And my abuser, my ex-partner, was arrested on that day. And we dissolved our relationship, of course, in the wake of that arrest. I was living in my ex-partner's home, which legally belonged to him. And the arresting officer was really unclear as to whether and how to file an EPO, which was of no issue. I ultimately filed one the next day with instructions the following morning on August 13th, 2016, and one was in effect. My experience as to how that was, having, of course, now massive life changes to have to navigate, dealing with being about a quarter of a way through my pregnancy, and navigating a new life, escaping the abuse, and regaining my freedom was definitely something that was hampered by the fact that in the time frame you're given with an EPO, under the 30 days, it's kind of, you got to grab your hat and leave. And especially if you don't have any legal rights to the residence which you're living in at the time of the separation from your abuser, such as the case with me, they really also created a lot of complications. I was fortunate in the sense, unlike a lot of survivors, that charges were laid, that there was also criminal justice involvement. But a lot of survivors, of course, are not leaving in the wake of charges being laid. They're just getting away. And what I benefited from in my situation was after the extension, the expiry, I should say, of my 30-day EPO, the Crown prosecutor varied the recognizance under which my ex-partner was under, such that it covered me to continue to be able to retain legal occupancy of the residence until I could find a new home for myself and my child to be, until I could go and take those critical steps of starting to line up domestic violence counseling via the criminal injuries counseling program, to make all the life adjustments that you have to make when you find yourself in that situation. So, I was fortunate in the sense that I had a Crown prosecutor who was willing to go and kind of pick up where that low string was trailing on the floor via the extension of the recognizance until my ex-partner attended a trial on the assault charge, or whether I was able to go and negotiate via a consent order in the family court or just a civil litigation to a date by which I would be leaving the residence, whichever came first. And I was able to benefit from having that happen, that I was able to negotiate a consent order. I will add that was not, of course, before the end of endless amounts of intimidation, including false trespassing notices being placed on my door in violation of the recognizance, etc. All that is to say is that it's just not the reality for intimate partner violence survivors to just have 30 days to take those first steps to rebuilding their life. And a year is really incredible to think of. And I'm going to go back to my own story as to why that would also be of benefit to survivors, especially those who have or who will be giving birth to children with the ex-partner from whom they have separated. Approximately 5 months after I separated from my abuser and had moved on I was prepared to move on to a new residence at an appointed date and time. I was due to give birth to my son. And I then now faced what a lot of survivors will face with regard to child custody and litigation abuse. One of the most malleable ways of doing this is via the Child Protection Agency. and making allegations, the onus of which, for proof, at the outset at least, are really easily accepted via hearsay, and which you then go and get pulled into in order to go and prove whether those allegations are true or not in court. And that was my experience. A large part of maintaining control of the narrative of my life and what the trajectory of that relationship had become in terms of the abuse and then the leaving of the abuse would have been spelled out a lot more clearly to the agency, to Child Protective Services, and to the justice that presided over that file in now 2017, upon giving birth to my son, had I still had an EPO in effect. What I mean by that is it helps to also create a blanket of support and care and even protection. The word protection in EPO is very much an active word for a survivor. And if I had had the benefit of having an EPO that extended me through until January, or rather I should say August of the following year, that would have been taking me through till really the end of what became the CFSA proceedings that were dragged out for nearly 10 months, from January until their official termination in October, that was created at the behest of my ex-partner. I faced allegations of suicidality and giving my child up for adoption, none of which had any basis in reality and which was proven in court to not be true. But my point being that there's more of a facility with the lack of there being an EPO that can be put in place upon leaving a relationship where there has been violence, if that protection extends for a full year. Because a lot of the time you are dealing with family court before too long in some capacity or another, whether you're dealing with a CFSA proceeding, such as my ex-partner had attempted to do, or whether you're going into the family division under the Nova Scotia Supreme Court, which I have to say, 9 years later, I'm still in. I'm still in. And I want the committee to know that part of the reason why it was also important for me to appear today is because, as you see, I am white. I come from a middle-class, educated family. My parents were educators. They were teachers in the public school system. I hold 2 degrees, anthropology and English, and I also have a Bachelor of Journalism degree. I worked in that field, then worked in the arts for many years, and for the last 12 years, I've been a proud employee of the municipal government and the library services, and I'm a library professional. But I still became an intimate partner violence survivor. And I don't fit that mold. At times that has been really problematic in navigating the system because there is a lot of stereotypical thinking, unfortunately, which persists in this province around that. I don't want to digress off of that too much, but it's important to know that the EPO will be, if it's put in place and it extends protection to survivors for the span of a year from the date of issuance, you will be providing protection to survivors beyond what I think the committee even realizes. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I'll now open the floor for 5 minutes of questioning. MLA Wozni.
I'm wondering if you mentioned you're looking for clarity on some items on a different part of the bill. I'm wondering if you would like to. I'm wondering what those questions are in hopes that we might give you some clarity on those.
Thank you. Yes,
Sorry. Okay. I recognize Ms. McCarthy.
Thank you. I'm a little bit unclear as to right now what the restrictions would be around publication of completed CFSA proceedings and what the proposed changes are of those. My understanding is that as long as the child currently is 16 years of age or reaches the age of majority and the proceeding is concluded, that there are no bans around anyone who had been a party of those proceedings to publicize an aspect of that proceeding and their experience of it in the future. My concern is that if we have further restrictions on that, I have concern that survivors could be silenced, that this will act as something that will be more and more easy able to do. I am certainly not the only survivor that has had the agency of Child Protective Services weaponized against me and had to navigate that process. I'm fortunate that I had the outcome that I did. A lot of other survivors perhaps didn't have the same resources, didn't have the same access to legal counsel, and they lost significant placement in their children's lives. I think the public needs to know about this. This is taxpayer money. These are public funds. And people need to understand, and I don't really get the sense 9 years on in dealing with this greater overall arcing situation in my life in terms of the system navigation and all the various justice partners that I have dealt with, from family lawyers to RCMP to police. I don't think there's an awareness of how much and to what extent the agencies misuse. There's not an awareness of it in the greater public. And I think people do need to know that, because it would help to hold those who would weaponize that agency and misuse and misdirect the resources and the funding that the government gives to people who do need intervention, to children who do need help. They would have a greater awareness of that, and there'd be more accountability around those who would misuse the agency.
Thank you. MLA Wozni.
So, Chair, I think I heard the gist of the question is whether or not it's possible for someone to outline the changes to really the ban on publication that are contained with the law. What the impact would that be? I don't know if we have access to that perspective through Ledge Council present, or if we're equipped to answer that in committee.
We can't answer that question directly. We don't have the person who drafted the legislation here today, but we could probably seek, with the will of the committee, to get back on some clarifications. MLA Wozni.
I'm just prepared, Chair, if a motion is required to action that, I'd be prepared to make that motion to request that clarity from the supporting counsel for the legislation, just so that those answers come forward to the witness.
If you'd like to make that motion. If the will of the committee and we have consensus, we could seek out to do that without a motion. Is it the will of the committee to do that by consensus? Just clarifications on the questions. Okay. All right. So we will go forward and get that information back to you. We have a few seconds left. If anybody have a quick question, MLA Van Exen.
I just wanted to thank you very much for your time and the strength you showed in sharing your story. Thank you very much.
Yes, thank you.
Yeah. So time is up. So we want to thank you very much. Yes. We need survivors to continue to speak out, and we're very, very pleased you were able to share your story today. Thank you.
Thank you.
We'll now move on to our next presenter, and that will be Carrie Martel. Would you please come forward? Carrie Martel. Is Carrie Martel here? We're just having our commissioner checking to see if Mrs. Martel is outside, so we'll just hang on for a couple of seconds to give her an opportunity if she is there. Mrs. Martel was scheduled to be here at 11:30. It's now 11:37. With the will of the committee, I think we should move on. Ever agreed? So those are all the presenters we have for this bill. I'll ask for motions on the floor to report the bill back to the House. MLA Burns.
I move that presentations on Bill 201, Justice and Social Service Act, be concluded.
Okay, go ahead.
I move that Bill 201, Justice and Social Services Act, be reported back to the House.
Thank you, MLA Burns. Ready for the question? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion is carried. Moving on to our next bill, Support for Fire Protection Services Act, Bill 186. And I believe we have 3 presenters for this now. And then these 2 after. So we will have 3 presenters. The first presenter is Joe Triff. Would Joe please come forward?
I think they might be able together. I think they're off.
Oh, all 3 of you are together? Yes. Oh, my apologies. I was confused. Thank you for coming. Could you all please introduce yourselves and how you would like to be addressed?
Michael Sears. I'm the Nova Scotia representative for the Atlantic Provinces Professional Firefighters, IAFF.
I'm Joe Triff. I'm the president of the Atlantic Provinces Professional Firefighters and the vice president in Halifax, Local 268.
Brendan Maher. I'm the president of the Halifax Professional Firefighters.
Thank you all. You have 10 minutes to present, and then we'll open the floor for 5 minutes of questioning.
This is fairly short notice for us to prepare our comments today. Thank you for your time. I started with the fire service in 2002, joining the IFF as a professional firefighter in 2008. You'll notice that we're here today not wearing uniforms. We're not speaking on behalf of the fire department. We're speaking on behalf of the folks who do this work day in and day out in our province, the professional firefighters of the IFF, Truro, Yarmouth, Cape Breton, and Halifax. I represent locals in every province, but specifically here in Nova Scotia, we have 4 IFF locals and roughly 700 firefighters. Our members represent the bulk of the risk in this province, the bulk of the population, half of which is in Halifax, and the bulk of the calls. The 3 of us have a combined over 13,000 emergency responses with fire services. After this hearing today, I'll be going back to work the rest of my shift in a station here in Halifax. It's really important that we convey to you folks that the IFF needs to be included as a stakeholder as we move through the development and implementation process. When it comes to employment conditions or collective agreements being impacted by regulations, organized labor needs a seat at the table. We feel like it's important to acknowledge that we're headed in a positive direction by giving fire services a home in government and a voice that is critical. However, we do see risks in how our working conditions may be impacted negatively, and we need to protect and respect collectively bargained rights. As we move towards standards and regulations, we need to be involved. If not, we need to see exemptions for jurisdictions with collective bargaining agreements. We are more than just members appointed to committees. We are stakeholders. And we can't just have our voice represented on a committee being led by others. The IFF is a juggernaut when it comes to firefighting. When it comes to industry standards, we already sit on these committees internationally. The NFPA has adopted industry best practices for firefighting, and our voice is at those tables. And we just want to make it very clear we need our voice here at the table when we're getting to the standards and regulations for this bill.
Thank you for the opportunity.
So I recognize you. Go ahead.
Brendan Maher, Halifax Professional Firefighters. Thank you for the opportunity to speak today. I echo the comments made by Captain Triff. We work together constantly, and as we share conditions and advocate with other communities in Nova Scotia that are represented by career firefighters, we have made significant progress in our working conditions and in our service delivery. Effective response is often linked with safe response. I grew up in a small town in Nova Scotia, and I commend the work that is done by volunteers throughout our province. It is very important in these communities. As a community grows and becomes, the risk profile increases exponentially. When we look at Halifax and we consider that lens, not only Halifax, but some other larger growing municipalities, when standards and regulations are developed for this province, they need to be based on industry standards. Emergency services have moved into police and ambulances are all compensated and moved away from volunteer service delivery. Volunteers play an essential role in smaller communities, but in our community with our risk profile, we need to be, the lens needs to be kept on improving and increasing our capabilities, our standards, and our ability to deliver services we provide in these areas. And we just want to ensure that as this work evolves, and we commend the province for the work that's been done, we know that it's sincere, and we just hope that no unintended consequences evolve where we do harm where we're trying to do good. And so the lens of urban response and whoever evolves into the leadership roles under the new regulations and legislation needs to have background with the experience in delivering urban emergency response. Thank you.
Mr. Sears?
Thank you. Just would like to echo, as the representative for Nova Scotia's professional firefighters, exactly what these two men have said. We're still on the trucks. We're still going to calls. We're still impacted by this work and the legislation therein. So all we're saying is we very much appreciate the willingness of the government and people in the elected seats that work with us and listen to us and have been at the table with us over the last, especially 10 years, collectively. What we bring to this is a collective of experience. 2 of the 3 of us were volunteers and became professional firefighters. There has been a narrative at some of these hearings and meetings throughout the province that there's a negative impact or an aspect of friction. That doesn't exist with us. We care about service delivery. We care about growing the service as the risk dictates, and to make sure that collective bargaining rights are protected, collective agreement, they're respected, and that as we move together collectively, we get this done right. So with our voices, the experience that we have, that's where we say that it's exceptionally important to bring that to the table, and especially as we move down the road of standards and regulations. So we're thankful for everybody's willingness to work with us and respect the industry that we represent, and we like to see it continuing forward, so thank you.
Thank you very much for your presentation. We'll now open the floor up for 5 minutes of questioning from committee members. MLA Wozni.
Thank you, Chair. I will, whoever is best suited to answer this question. You're here, because of your respective roles with the Atlantic Province's professional firefighters. What structural opportunities do you have to dialogue with the minister responsible for emergency services that would have enabled you to provide the perspective that you're sharing today in advance of legislation being drafted and presented?
Mr. Triff?
Yeah, we have had great dialogue with both the minister and the deputy minister. So far, what we've experienced is some committees have been formed, and those committees are more representational for geography versus experience. So we felt it was very important to come here and ensure that our voice is heard moving forward, that we need to be a stakeholder. When you take 1 or 2 professional firefighters, put them on a committee of 20 people, that view is watered down. And at the end of the day, we represent the bulk of the responses here, and we need a stronger voice. Thank you.
Other questions? MLA Wozni.
No, I'm good. Sorry, Chair.
MLA Van Exen.
I wanted to thank you for your service to our province, and thank you very much for coming here and sharing your voices today. Thank you.
Any further questions from the floor? Hearing none, I'd like to echo those comments. Firefighters running the buildings that everybody else is running out of. And we will never forget that, and thank you for your service. And please pass it along to all your members that we appreciate the risks they take, we appreciate the training they have to do, and the sacrifices you and your family have to make. And on behalf of the committee, thank you very much for appearing today. Oh, MLA Wozni.
Chair, I'm just wondering, there's a bit of an administrative piece we're trying to navigate here. I'd like to request a short recess so that we can address that.
The committee is recessed.
Okay.
Thank you, fellas. It's in recess. It's in recess. Order. We'll call the meeting back. I'm looking for a motion from the floor. MLA Wozni.
I think there's a couple of pathways to, so just for the benefit of the committee, it's come to our attention that a witness registered to testify or provide, testimony on Bill 201. We have sent Bill 201 back to the House and sort of ended presentations. I could either put forward a motion to reconsider the motion to close debate and forward the bill back to the House, or, Chair, as I understand, if the committee is unanimously agreed, we could agree to hear this witness without a formal motion to reconsider. So I guess I'll start with the least formal option, understanding I think there's been an administrative mishap, but I think it's testimony we want to hear. So I'd request that the committee agree unanimously to hearing this witness without having to reopen the bill.
Do we have unanimous consent? We have unanimous consent. Thank you very much, MLA Wozni. We'll now call forward Marion Brown. Welcome. Thank you very much. We apologize for whatever legislative issues we had there getting you here, but you're here now. Please introduce yourself, who you represent, if anyone, and how you would like to be called.
Thank you. My name is Marion Brown. I'm here just representing myself, although I've spent the weekend talking with social workers. I'm a social worker. I've been a licensed social worker since 1990, and I've been an educator at Dalhousie since 2002. And I appreciate the opportunity to speak to you today. I haven't done this before, so it was interesting to sit and watch a little bit. I apologize if I get a couple things wrong. So I am here to express my concern regarding the government's plan to repeal the Social Workers Act of 1993 and bring the profession under the Regulated Health Professions Act. I think it's a distinct move to silence social workers. The critique brought by the college over the years is uncomfortable for government. It's informed by evidence, fueled by conviction, and rooted in the values of the common good. This current government knows that social workers will name how racism, colonialism, white privilege, ableism, misogyny, transphobia, and all of their tendrils are embedded in social systems. So I believe that this is motivated by control and discomfort and fear. Independent self-regulation helps social workers make decisions based on professional expertise rather than political and administrative priorities. The Regulated Health Professions Act provisions politicize professional regulation, with government officials able to override professional judgment. And in areas like scopes of practice, standards of care, and ethical obligations, we already know that political priorities, often driven by neoliberalism and fiscal austerity, differ from those of the social work profession. Being subsumed under the Regulated Health Professions Act will silence the independent social work voice that champions vulnerable populations. Social work settings of child protection, employment supports, income assistance, community mental health, and addictions are intense fields of practice requiring specialized analysis and skill. And we can't have government comprised primarily of non-social workers directing social workers in how they should and should not be doing their jobs. The college does far more than license professionals or licensed practitioners. It defines ethical standards, holds members accountable, and safeguards public interest through advocacy on social welfare policy. The college has standards of practice tailored to the work and the values of the profession, and they are distinct. For more than 3 decades, the Social Workers Act has provided a regulatory structure that reflects the full scope of social work practice in this province. Social workers serve in hospitals, yes, and mental health clinics, but also schools, child welfare, housing programs, restorative justice, anti-racism organizations, Indigenous-led services, disability supports, seniors care, and community development sessions, not just health, although all of it is health. Our work, of course, addresses individual well-being, but also systemic forces that shape health and opportunity. poverty, racism, gender-based violence, we just heard so compellingly about, ableism, housing insecurity. And so to subsume social work within a generalized health professions framework narrows our mandate to a biomedical lens and diminishes our essential role in addressing the structural determinants of health. And I have to say, I think that this is what this government wants, for social workers to fall in line with biomedical, individualized lenses of clinical practice and set aside our foundations of knowledge, our deep analysis, our code of ethics, which require us to do much more. Social workers serve as advocates, system navigators in Black communities, Indigenous communities, newcomers, people with disabilities. I've listed these already. Our professional standards center anti-oppressive practice and cultural humility and social justice. So regulation, social work regulation, has to reflect the diversity of social work practice and uphold the profession's responsibility to challenge systemic injustice and not merely manage its effects. We download systemic issues onto individuals when we deny that analysis. I also question why the lack of consultation regarding this proposed change. Regulatory reform is supposed to be collaborative and transparent, so why not include practicing social workers across this province, Black and Nova Scotian and Indigenous, Mi'kmaq social workers and community leaders, disability justice advocates, queer communities, service people with lived experiences, and all of their advocates. Without that engagement, I think there's an erosion in confidence in both the profession and in government decision-making. Our college, represented so well here by Robert Wright, is committed to consultation with our practitioners across the province. They've done an excellent job in the most recent years in really bringing our practitioners together. The health and well-being of Nova Scotians depends not only on clinical health services, but on strong social infrastructure and advocates who address systemic inequities. Social workers are central to that infrastructure, and we need to have the self-regulation that lets us do our job. Our regulation should reflect our full mandate and not reduce it. Citizens of this province are better served when we protect and not dilute these foundations. Thank you very much.
Thank you, and we'll open the floor up for 5 minutes of questioning. MLA Wozni.
Thank you for your testimony. Thank you for furthering our understanding of the nature of social work and its essential scope of practice. We heard the minister in debate last week talk about how regulated health professions, they regulate the profession, they're not advocates. But I think you've done a wonderful job of explaining that social work is different. It is distinct in this respect. Is there a pathway to the current regulatory framework for licensure for social workers? Is there a pathway towards establishing social workers under this new domain that protects their ability to be advocates? In your opinion, is there a pathway if legislation was framed properly?
Oh, Mrs. Brown.
I heard Robert Wright's thoughts on regulatory reform, and in that regard, I do defer to the college. Personally, I don't think so. I think that social work, as I've stated, is a distinct profession, well beyond the scope of what most people think of as health. As I noted, I think all of it is health, but in the current sort of discourse, health is considered and sort of subsumed under the biomedical. Social work is required to be more than that. As Robert Wright said, it's not ancillary, it's not sort of tangential. So I personally don't see a space for social work under the Regulated Health Professions Act and think it deserves its own. I was a new social worker when the Act came in 1993, and it was heralded as a significant advancement for the profession of social work. And although it's not without its required amendments. It allows for the profession to be distinct and live up to its full scope of practice. Thank you.
Thank you. Any further questions? Thank you very much for attending today. We appreciate your submission. We will now return to Bill. We are now going to Bill 187, the Birthplace of Ice Hockey Act. We'll call Cheryl Maloney up, please. Cheryl Maloney. Order. 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 Thank you. Welcome. Please identify yourself, whatever organization you're representing, if any, and how you'd like to be referred to.
My name is Cheryl Maloney. I'm a member of the Mi'kmaq Nation. I recognize myself as a matriarch and a knowledge holder and a hockey historian researcher.
Fantastic. Thank you. Welcome. And we're pleased to have you today. You have 10 minutes, followed by 5 minutes of questioning from the committee.
Okay. I'd like to thank you, honorable members, for being here and allowing me this opportunity to speak on this, what I consider a very personal, private matter to me and my family and my nation, the Mi'kmaq Nation. And I first off want to say that I say it's a personal, private matter because there is no mandate, authority, jurisdiction, or need for a province, a provincial government enacted in, in 1867 under the British North America Act to even have to have a say over the origins and the birthplace of a game, and not a game, a part of Mi'kmaq history and culture. We, my sister and my son, conducted research a few years ago on the Mi'kmaq's, the Mi'kmaq contributions to the game of hockey. And my son, at the time in grade 7, conducted the first research on the Mi'kmaq timeline of the hockey sticks. Yeah.
Please continue.
And during that that research, it became more and more evident. Excuse me? Can I get my time back? Can I reclaim my time?
Well, you can reclaim your time. Go ahead.
Thank you. It was during that time that we went beyond. At first, we were really excited to find history and evidence of the Mi'kmaq, up until Windsor, up until Dartmouth, Kingston, all these people trying to claim the game as their own. And I know we were doing research, and it was very personal research because it was our great-great-grandfather that wrote into the newspaper, Chase's great-great-great-grandfather that wrote into the newspaper with oral history in 1943. And his history is based on his father, who lived to be 93, which would have put them around the early 1800s, that the Mi'kmaq have always played a game on ice with the roots of trees. We went even further than that. We went back to 1749, where it was found that the Mi'kmaq were playing a game on ice with the roots of trees in Tusk Cove, Dartmouth, Nova Scotia. So I applaud Dartmouth for saying, you know what, there's some fallacies to this story. But the fallacies go even beyond that. They go beyond written timelines and written history, we went to the Mi'kmaq language, pre-contact Mi'kmaq language, found hockey and all the renditions of vowels and things that belong to the Mi'kmaq people. We even went further back to 1398 in Stellarton, Nova Scotia, and Miragamish, where we could tie written historical evidence from Europe and to the game being played on ice with the roots of trees. The very same roots of trees that each of these people that are trying to claim the game from, Windsor, Dartmouth, the Montreal for the first organized game, to the NHL in 1917. The common denominator in all of those games was the Mi'kmaq hockey sticks. And the Mi'kmaq hockey rules in 1749 observed were the same rules observed in Montreal in 1875. So whatever evolution of this game was, the Mi'kmaq are the common denominator. So that takes me here today to say, why does it matter if you pass this bill? Why does it matter? Because this province and this government, this current government in particular, is maintaining a position of denial to Aboriginal rights. And so if you're going to look to 1810 and look no further, you're going to do a disservice to your government. Because in 1810, 1752, 1867, you inherited a relationship built on peace and friendship in this province. Along with that inherited treaties and relationship, we inherited the game and the evolution of the game. The game doesn't belong to Windsor, Dartmouth. It doesn't belong to anybody. It belongs to all Nova Scotians under peace and friendship. This is an evolution, but the roots, the strength, the evidence is clear. The Mi'kmaq have been a part of every point of that evolution to the game. And the World Hockey Confederation invited us to air our film, the Mi'kmaq, the Game of Hockey, a Mi'kmaq Story. We aired it at the World Junior Hockey Championships. TSN, Omni, Rogers, researchers all over North America are looking to the Mi'kmaq game. But that's not why I came here. Because why I came here is this government's continual denial of Mi'kmaq rights and our shared history with Nova Scotians and Canadians. Nova Scotia, Mi'kmaq, is the birthplace of not just hockey. We are the birthplace of Canada. Our treaty instruments, our international agreements with the Vatican, with France, Britain. We have a treaty with the United States of America, the Mi'kmaq, the first treaty with the United States of America, the first international treaty to be signed with the United States of America was the Mi'kmaq people, the Mi'kmaq nation. We are their brothers, we are their allies. And this government in Nova Scotia, a very young government in the timeline of our hockey history, we've gone back to 1398, but I think we can go back even a little further if we go and do more research in more countries. So the international nation of Mi'kmaq and the game, is something that Nova Scotians and Canadians inherited. You didn't come on the shores of savage people. You came onto the shores with statesmen, with strong international rights and treaties. But one thing I want to come here for today, the main thing I wanted to come here for today, was to show how the game of hockey and those roots of trees that the Mi'kmaq have so proudly built with their hands in the forest of Mi'kma'ki, along with that was trade. The Mi'kmaq traded across to Europe, into the United States of America, all over North America, all over Canada. Yet, I sit before you now where the Mi'kmaq are not allowed to sell their lobsters in Nova Scotia due to a provincial regulation. You want to regulate our cannabis sales through provincial laws. You want to recognize hockey belonging to a colonial body that wasn't even in existence at the time that we had evolved this game, developed. And so Nova Scotia, if you guys want to pass this bill, you will be the laughingstocks of the international world, the international hockey world, because that world is looking at truth and reconciliation. There cannot be no truth and reconciliation in Nova Scotia until my people are able to sell our wares, to trade unhindered, to be respected, not just the game of hockey, but to be respected as nation to nation partners here. And without that, you guys will fail. Our premier is in Ontario right now. Without the Mi'kmaq partnership and our full consent, you will fail because there's 350 cases in this country at the highest court in the land that recognize Indigenous rights over their territory. I am a medicine person. I tried to gather and harvest last year, and I've been run off of lands, or we face lands that are totally destroyed. And then this government is proposing to bring in industry and trample on more rights. The game of hockey and the roots of trees is a shared history. We inherited that, and we built that together in peace and friendship with Nova Scotians and with Canadians. And I believe that Nova Scotians and Canadians believe in the peace and friendship treaties. I don't believe this government's mandate and objectives, nor do I believe, nor any more than I believe Trump's objectives in his war is good for Mi'kmaq and good for Nova Scotians. So I would just like to say the Mi'kmaq contributions go well beyond the game of hockey. And if the puck stops here, kind of, you know, it's time to recognize that and reconcile the fact that Mi'kmaq people have free prior informed consent. It's a treaty. It's foundational to our treaties, and that's not just for Mi'kmaq. Consent-based decision-making should lead the province in how you guys do your business with your members. And with that, thank you for your time. I appreciate dialogue. If you want to go forth with your bill, please do. You know.
Thank you very much. We'll now open the floor up for 5 minutes of questioning. MLA Mombercat.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just a comment. Thanks for coming. And that was a great history lesson about the game of hockey. No, it matters, and I really appreciate the story that you told me today. So thank you, Mr. Chair.
Mrs. Mahoney.
You're welcome. There's another question.
MLA Coombs.
First, let me apologize for my phone going off. It was on silent, but it wasn't off. So I'm sorry about that. And you can correct me if I'm wrong, but I think I'm correct in saying that no one was consulted on this bill. The chiefs were not consulted about this before it came forward. And the other aspect of this I was thinking of as you were speaking, and as I was listening to you, many would see the passage of this bill as a part of whitewashing history and denial of the Mi'kmaq's contributions and the Mi'kmaq's history. Am I correct in that's what you were laying out for us?
I believe the duty
I have to recognize you. Hang on. If your mic will turn on. Mrs. Maloney.
Okay, I believe the duty to consult is a figment of legal imagination, and that's not the reality in the country. And actually, if you go into the courts, when it regards to matters particular to Indigenous rights and title, in the extreme cases, it's always a matter of consent. And so this government, this rather new government, in the long term things, you guys can create all the bills you want. You're going to still have to answer to the Supreme Court of Canada, you know, the courts in your jurisdictions, and the duty to consult is, I don't even use that language anymore, and I don't think we should for Nova Scotians. I think all Nova Scotians should be consulted on, and I mean broader things than just this bill on and outs in hockey. But if you're going to do things in Nova Scotia, then every Nova Scotian, under the spirit and intent of the Mi'kmaq Treaties, which are the foundation, they allow for Canada and Nova Scotia to form a government. In the spirit of Mi'kmaq law, we expect consent of your people, consent of our people, and I think together we'll come up with some really, really good ways to do things. And one of them is to protect water, environment, and energy. Energy democracy is part of Mi'kmaq law, Mi'kmaq rights, and Mi'kmaq way of living. We lived here for 13,000 years, and our energy bills were zero. So come on, there's a better way, and we need all Nova Scotians to be a part of that. And I just, like I said, you can pass this bill, you can pass any of the bills that you're proposing, but they will come and face the Mi'kmaq and our partners, our treaty partners, which are all Nova Scotians. So, but I don't want Nova Scotia to be the laughingstock of the international Indigenous hockey research, which I presented to. I presented my history many places over the last decade, and as soon as people hear the full story, there's no more talk of Windsor, and I was even embarrassed for Windsor because they are in the film, and if you guys watch the film that we sent you yesterday, you would see the level of the weight of the research and stuff and the situation with Windsor. So I would, you know, you can do what you want with your bill in Nova Scotia. The Mi'kmaq history, stories, and the truth is going to be there no matter what you do, and it's going to be recognized no matter what Nova Scotia says. And so thank you for your time. Any
Great.
other questions?
Is there probably time for one more quick question? MLA Wozni.
What, in your view, is the harm of passing a bill that tells an incomplete and inaccurate story of the history of hockey in our province on the nation-to-nation relationship that Nova Scotia has with the Mi'kmaq people?
Oh, just hang on. We have about a minute left. Mrs. Maloney.
Okay. I think the harm is what we're seeing around the world right now. The dysfunction and imbalance and these energy wars and the fear that's put into people. We shouldn't be warring. We are a nation based on a peace and friendship treaties of the Mi'kmaq Nation, and these treaties were the ones that allowed Canada and the U.S. to expand. If the Canada and U.S. and governments in North America follow the principles of peace and friendship and nation to nation, I think we'll have a better world. And so the harm to do nothing is the status quo, I believe. If we continue to ignore Indigenous nations, Indigenous knowledge, not just in North America, but globally, then the world's in a really tough spot. So watch the news, everyone. I guess that's the harm.
Thank you very much. That ends the time we have for questioning. We really appreciate you coming today. And we will now call our next witness. That will be Hillary Maloney. Oh, sorry, Hillary Maloney Paul. Hillary Maloney Paul. Oh, just hang on a second. I got to recognize you. Okay, please introduce yourself and identify whatever organization you're representing, if any, and what you would like to be referred to as.
My name is Hillary Maloney. I am a Mi'kmaq woman here to represent the youth of Indian Brook, Sabag-Nagady.
Great. Thank you very much for coming today. You have 10 minutes, so will be followed by 5 minutes of questioning from committee members.
I wanted to share this. This is my little brother's project that he did in grade 7, and his project was about the Mi'kmaq history of hockey. We have the other project over there, but I would like to share that with the sticks. Honorable members of the committee, my name is Hillary Maloney Paul, and I'm speaking today on behalf of my brother Chase Nicholas. I stand here not only as a sister, but as a Mi'kmaq woman, sharing in the responsibility to protect and honor our history. Chase has dedicated years to researching and sharing this story, and I am proud to help him carry his voice. Chase's journey into the history began when he was just a student himself, and has grown into something much larger. A mission that has reached audiences through Rogers, Omni TV, TSN, CBC. This is not simply about sport, it is about identity, truth, and reconciliation. Bill 187 seeks to declare a single town as the birthplace of hockey based on written records from 1810. However, Mi'kmaq oral and written histories point to a much earlier origin. Our accounts describe a game played on ice using sticks, pucks, and bone skates as early as 1749. On the Dartmouth Lakes, our language includes words connected to hockey-related concepts that predate European settlement. These histories have been carried through generations long before they were ever written in colonial records. The Mi'kmaq were also the premier stick makers of their time. By the mid-1800s, Mi'kmaq crafted sticks made from ironwood, yellow birch, and ash. They were widely recognized as the finest available. These sticks were sold throughout the Maritimes and beyond. The oldest surviving hockey sticks, including one dated in the 1830s, are attributed to Mi'kmaq artisans. Even in the early days of the National Hockey League, players relied on the Mi'kmaq-made sticks. This legacy is personal to our family and to many others. The Cope family of Sabag-Nagady carried this craft across generations. Old Cope Joe publicly asserted that the Mi'kmaq created the game, and Alexander Cope continued the tradition in the 20th century. These are documented accounts that deserve recognition. To pass Bill 187 without acknowledging pre-1810 Mi'kmaq history and the deep indigenous roots of hockey would ignore a significant part of the truth. At a time when reconciliation is stated priority, we must ensure that legislation does not reinforce incomplete narratives. True reconciliation requires us to recognize indigenous contributions fully and accurately. Chase's work, including the film The Game of Hockey, a Mi'kmaq story which was screened during the World Junior Championship in Halifax, reflects the growing understanding that his history matters. The evolution of hockey can be traced back consistently to Mi'kmaq communities. We were not incidental participants. We were innovators and foundational contributors to the sport. On behalf of my brother, I ask this committee to reconsider the narrow scope of Bill 187. Do not legislate a version of history that leaves out the first people of the land. Before there was a town called Windsor, there was a nation playing this game on these waters and lakes. Let us ensure the future generations learn the full story of hockey, a story rooted in Mi'kmaq knowledge, craftsmanship, pride, and resilience. Thank you.
Thank you very much for your presentation. We'll now open the floor up for 5 minutes of questioning. Emily Hanson.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you for sharing today. There's often times where folks bring legislation forward without the true meaning behind how it affects our communities and what that means. And I want to say thank you to Chase for doing all this research and informing folks on the true nature and the narrative of what this history means for our communities and our province. So, like my colleague had mentioned about obviously consultation or communication, I'm just curious to know, was there any contact or any reach out to find out more about this history, so that maybe there may be amendments that could be put forward to recognize the true nature of what this looks like for that particular bill.
Mrs. Maloney Paul.
I believe there was limited conversation that we had to, and anybody reaching out. I feel like it was just kind of like treated as a minor situation that people weren't concerned about. I feel like it's very important to our youth in our community to understand that, you know, they have a history that belongs to our nation, and our children should be able to grow up and have that pride.
Thank you. Any further questions? MLA Hanson.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'm really intrigued to know more, and I'd love to be able to view the video as well. I know it was mentioned that it was shared. Some of us do know that history, so I mean, it's always good to really be able to reinforce the work that we're doing here on the floor to be able to speak that truth to power. I want to say that our young people are the generation that's going to change the way that we do the things we do, and I'm grateful that we have young people that know who they are. But in order for them to feel like they see themselves in this world, we as legislators need to know more. So I would like to know if you could share that information with multiple folks here so that we can be all on the same page.
Mrs. Maloney Paul, a couple minutes left.
Okay, I feel like there are gaps between the bridges. I feel like there are gaps that we could be filling and teaching. And I really think this right here can provide a positive outlook for our youth and making them have a little more sense of belonging where, like, you know, we are minority in a colonial place that, like, you know, like when we go to school, we're a minority. So there's one person to every 1,000, one Mi'kmaq student to graduate to every 1,000. So I think to build these bridges between hockey, education, and other things, that it's really important. And I think these are the first steps of the conversations, and we should be, you know, finding new resources to help build these gaps and help the children. And I feel like today is a good start.
We may have time for one more quick question if anybody has one. MLA Coombs.
Yes, thank you. You mentioned the documentary. I'm wondering, prior to this Windsor bill being put forward, did government know about this? Because it seems like it was really public. And so I'm wondering if government knew about it, why this bill would be on the table, if you have any idea or can provide any information on it.
Very quickly, Mrs. Maloney Paul.
I don't think they knew about it, even though it has been very publicly. Maybe that's a little bit more research that they should be doing on their behalf. Thank you.
That's the time we have allotted for questions. Thank you very much for your presentation today. We appreciate you presenting in front of our committee.
I'd like to leave this with you guys so you guys can have a little view of my little brother's work.
Fantastic.
Thank you very much.
We'll table that, and we'll ask the clerk to pick that up. And we want to thank you again for being here. We'll now call David Jones forward. Good afternoon, Mr. Jones. We appreciate you being here. Please identify yourself, what organization you are representing, if any, and how you'd like to be referred to, please.
Thank you very much. My name is David Jones. I'm representing myself. I'm from Dartmouth, Nova Scotia.
Well, thank you very much for being here, Mr. Jones. We have 10 minutes for a presentation and then 5 minutes of questioning from the committee.
First off, the first thing I want to say is thank you so much to Cheryl and Hillary for their presentations, grounding us in Mi'kmaq heritage and history, and this true story of the evolution of hockey in Nova Scotia, in Mi'kma'ki. When I first learned about this bill, by mistake, by accident, I saw on Facebook there was a post by the Premier about the American hockey team and his thoughts on that. And someone in the comments said, well, how does this relate to the Birthplace of Hockey Act. And I said, the birthplace of what? And I've been researching hockey history since I was a little boy. My dad, Martin Jones, wrote a book called Hockey's Home, Halifax, Dartmouth, The Origin of Canada's Game. In 2002, it was a national bestseller. It was read all around Nova Scotia, Canada, and the world, and it spoke specifically about Dartmouth being the birthplace of hockey, but also it really talked about the Mi'kmaq story and the connections, and not just Mi'kmaq people making hockey sticks that were sold by Star Manufacturing and local sporting goods, but just really having a most profound impact on the game. And I noticed in the bill there isn't anything that mentions the Mi'kmaq. There's nothing about their contributions to hockey. There's nothing about records showing that in the 1860s they were playing with white people on the Dartmouth Lakes, combining their traditional stick and ball games on ice with wooden skates, with bone skates, with like Irish and Scottish traditions of what would develop into hockey. There's nothing about the Mi'kmaq, and there's nothing about the multiple contributions of African Nova Scotians, especially through the Coloured Hockey League of the Maritimes, which developed right here with teams from Halifax, from Africville, from Dartmouth, from black communities throughout Nova Scotia and the Maritimes. And not being facetious, as being someone that has studied hockey history for so long, I truly think this bill was written with ChatGPT. And I'm not trying to make a joke. I'm being 100% honest. So when you go through it line by line, there's inconsistency after inconsistency. It mentions multiple paintings of early hockey being played in Nova Scotia. There's only one. That one is from the 1860s, done by H.B. Lawrence, and that shows Dartmouth. It says on the painting, the Dartmouth Lakes, and it has a game of curling, and in the background there are people skating with hockey sticks playing hockey, and that is in Dartmouth. It's not in Windsor. Another thing, we've been talking about 1810. 1810 is a made-up number for hockey, a made-up year. So in 1844, there was a true work of fiction by Thomas Chandler Halliburton called The Attaché, or Sam Slick in England, and it was a 4-part novel. And in that, all that is mentioned is there are 2 fictitious characters, a squire and Sam Slick, and they're talking back and forth. And one of them goes, oh, like you're always going on about the old days. I bet you would talk about this, 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 and that. And then they say Hurley on the Long Pond. Hurley is an Irish stick and ball game where the ball is bounced on a stick. It's very different from hockey. And in that reference, there's nothing about using skates. There's nothing about a hockey stick. There's nothing about teams, on and on and on. And I think that's a big blaring gap. And so that was written in 1844. It's known as a work of fiction. So people that were Windsor proponents say, well, Thomas Chandler Halliburton was born in 1796. So let's say if he was 4 years old and this book was truly a work of nonfiction and he was playing hockey, let's say he was playing hockey when he was 4. And on signs, you'll see Windsor, birthplace of hockey, circa 1800. So that number is made up. It's fictitious. It's not based in anything near reality. Furthermore, something that is not mentioned in this bill, everyone, is in 2002, the Society for International Hockey Research published a report investigating the claim that Windsor is the birthplace of hockey. Guess what they found? They declared that Windsor is in no way the birthplace of hockey and that their evidence is based solely on one work of fiction from 1844. And Windsor proponents, starting in the 1980s, said, well, those imaginary boys that they talk about playing hockey, which is actually hurley, which isn't hockey, they must have taken this game all around to Halifax and Dartmouth and to Montreal. They must have spread it around the world. But the report also says there's no evidence that any such game played in Windsor turned into anything else. So if you look at that 1844 claim, that's just a blip or a silo in the hockey or really Hurley story. Whereas the Mi'kmaq claim, not even the claim, the Mi'kmaq story of hockey, that goes back hundreds or thousands of years. And the best sticks in the world were Mi'kmaq handmade sticks made of hornbeam, ironwood, ash, yellow birch, and they were carved in Halifax, Dartmouth, at Turtle Grove, at Lake Bannock, and Lake Micmac, and on the Spagnagity First Nation in Indian Brook and in Millbrook. They were made all around the province, and they were shipped all around the world. And early NHL teams, starting in 1917, in their ads, they would say, we use the best equipment in the world. We use star skates and star sticks. And in all those advertisements, it would say at the time, using that language, it would say Indian made or Micmac made, but we know it was made by Mi'kmaq artisans. And also, as I wrap up, everyone, Dartmouth has really strong evidence. So I was growing up Dartmouth is the birthplace of hockey household. My dad writing a book about Dartmouth being the birthplace of hockey. And I learned so much. On Oat Hill Lake, which is in the Hawthorne School Manor Park area, tucked up above beautiful Lake Bannock, in 1867, there was a detailed newspaper record. So if we look at the Little Windsor claim, Hurley on the Long Pond, it's that long, it's in a work of fiction. In the 1867 February 17th newspaper, it says that the ice on Halifax Harbor, it used to freeze, ice on Halifax Harbor and Lake Bannock and Maynard's Lake isn't good. They called it a sheety, not the other SH word, but SHEETY, like a crackly sheet of ice. And they said we had to really work. We had to do our homework. They didn't have Facebook to say, hey, where's the good hockey place? They had to go look for it. And they went in the woods, and they said they took an old path. I wonder who made that path. That would have been a Mi'kmaq path in the woods. And they said, we took an old path to where our grandfathers used to fish. And we found this great lake called Oat Hill Lake. What a surprise. And today it's still a hidden gem beyond 1867 to 2026. And anyways, the newspaper report says there were 1,000 people watching. There were two teams, the Army and the Navy. The garrison brought two military teams to play. And on the other side of the lake, they said the locals. They had like kind of nasty names for them, saying that they were a little rough from Dartmouth. But on the one side, there was the locals playing their version of hockey, and on the other side was the Army and the Navy. So you have the first written record of two teams playing each other. And by definition, for the Society of International Hockey Research, they want evidence of two teams playing hockey. There you have it. And they also mentioned the first time that beer and hockey were ever paired together, because they brought a hot beer machine. Sounds kind of gross. I think I'd rather hot chocolate out there on the ice, but they brought that, and they had a military band. So you have the best recorded version of hockey that you could ever wish, and it's right there on Oat Hill Lake in 1867. And finally, I want to say, someone asked me the other day on the news, it was Paul Hollingsworth, he said, how come people still think it's Windsor after like all this evidence by the Mi'kmaq and of the Colored Hockey League of the Maritimes and of Dartmouth? And I said, well, Windsor has better PR. They have these big, nice, shiny signs on the 101, which I have to remind you have now been taken down. They took out the birthplace of hockey. So I wonder if the province is taking down a sign that said Windsor is the birthplace of hockey, why are they putting an act that says Windsor is the birthplace of hockey? It makes you kind of wonder. But on those signs, everyone, if you were driving to the beautiful valley or to a Halifax, Dartmouth, you would have noticed there were red and white hockey jerseys on players, and they had a big white W on the red jersey. I wonder where they ever got that image. They stole that from a Star Manufacturing ad in Dartmouth. Star made the world's first modern hockey skates. No coincidence that was in Dartmouth, which was like the incubus of hockey. And Star made 17 million pairs of skates that were shipped all around the world. It's on Prince Albert Road. The remains of the plant are still underneath the ground. They took that from a 1890s Star ad with a hockey player on Lake Bannock with a red and white uniform with a giant white star. In downtown Windsor, there was a sign using that exact ad. It wasn't abstract, and they stuck a W on it to make it look like early hockey. So that kind of stuff is a little wonky, and I'd like you all to really reconsider this bill. I think it should be scrapped, and I think a better use of resources would be for the province to team up with the Historic Sites and Monuments Board of Canada to recognize Mi'kmaq contributions to hockey. I think that would really tell a more accurate story, and it would get a lot of interest in hockey instead of making a claim that is shot down within like a minute worth of Googling. So everyone, thank you so much for allowing me to speak.
Wow, well, thank you very much. Yeah. That wasn't sheety at all. Now I'd like to open the floor for 5 minutes of questions. MLA Coombs.
Thank you. So from all three presenters, including yourself, what I'm hearing is that this bill is wholly inaccurate and is there is really even no history to back up this bill, this claim in this bill. Am I fully correct in what I am saying here today?
No, Mr. Jones.
Thank you very much. Wholeheartedly, yes. You know, I had some jokes about Sheedy and stuff like that, but I am truly passionate about this. I have the facts. They were embedded in me when I was in like grade 6 at the archives with my dad researching this stuff. And I truly think like we can do better than this. I have ADHD, so when I saw that beautiful work by Chase next to me, I wanted to just keep reading it because it's visual, it's well researched, it's based in oral tradition and in the written record. And Mi'kmaq people know who invented hockey. They know where it came from because we have families of hockey stick makers and we have decades and decades of Mi'kmaq hockey teams and this beautiful tradition. And yes, I am Team Dartmouth Birthplace of Hockey, but I know the roots and to hear Matriarch Cheryl speak about those roots that go deep in the ground. That's not just literally the hockey stick, that's family history. And that's the people that lived here first and needed something to do in the winter. And everyone, no matter where you were in the world, would go and seek out recreation and to have fun and to use what was available to you. They didn't have carbon fiber hockey sticks. They made sticks themselves out of the trees that were native to Nova Scotia. So I'm worried that the right people weren't consulted. I'm worried that the right research wasn't done. And this is creating a conversation. So yes, I can bash the bill and say it was done with ChatGPT, which I truly believe, but I think we can do something from this, scrap that, and work on making a National Historic Event for the invention of the hockey stick. That's right here, or for hockey. And I think that would be really awesome. I'm getting kind of emotional talking about that because that's a great opportunity. But this wasn't done the right way. I think it was done in a very divisive way and a way that just doesn't speak to what we can truly do. The research is there. Just go up the street to the Nova Scotia archives or talk to people in Sabaganagady and Millbrook, or go talk to my dad who wrote Hockey's Home. We're all out here, and we just love to have more of these conversations instead of learning about this bill by accident and then having to sign up Friday night to speak Monday morning. So
We have a minute left, probably time for one more quick one. MLA Hanson. MLA Hanson. Try again.
Well, thank you, Mr. Chair. I want to say thank you so much for your presentation. Absolutely, just really, I'm more engrossed in it, and I appreciate the fact that you pointed out. You know, there are facts, there are some research, there's some really good, like, true information, instead of spewing a narrative that can create divisiveness. And that's not what we want, because we're not like that in Nova Scotia. We want to make sure that we do the best work for all Nova Scotians, and this is just not one of those pieces. So I thank you for coming forward and speaking, and I hope to hear more, because we do need to make sure that our history isn't lost in this province. Thank you.
Mr. Jones, I'll give you 30 seconds to sum up here.
Thank you very much. I really appreciate that comment. And everyone, like, hockey is a team sport. So let's play on the same team instead of, you know, pitting town against town, ChatGPT versus actual research. I think we can work together and make something really special out of this and have a reset. I think we need a reset. We need to go in the locker room and have a little chat with the coach because things are going a little hairy here. But everyone, thanks for this opportunity. I love talking about hockey history, and the more we can talk about it, the better, but I think we have to do it together. So thank you very much, everybody.
Thank you, Mr. Jones, and we appreciate your I guess very motivated presentation, and we appreciate you coming. Looking forward to seeing you again. So now we're going to move on to I guess we're going back to Bill 186, Support for Fire Protection Services Act. And the next presenter is Mayor Pam Mood, who will be on here virtually. I believe Mayor Mood is online. Are you there, Mayor Mood?
I am.
Well, my day has been brightened already.
That's just what I thought you might say.
So we'll call the meeting back to order. Mayor Mood, we thank you very much for attending today. Could you please introduce who's with you, and we will then hear your presentation for 10 minutes.
Perfect, thank you. So, yeah, thank you to you and the committee members for allowing us to participate. I am Pam Mood, the mayor of the town of Yarmouth and the past president of Nova Scotia Federation of Municipalities. And joining me today is Evan Lanny, and he is NSFM's Director of Advocacy and Policy, better known as the person that makes me look good when I'm not. So I'm thrilled to have him here. So, yeah, so we're just here to speak on behalf of our membership around Bill 186, of course, the Support for Fire Protection Services Act. For a clear understanding of the organization, I'm not sure who knows the details, but in a nutshell, NSFM is the voice of all 49 municipalities in Nova Scotia. Our members are represented by over 370 municipally elected officials, and they all place their trust in NSFM to work in partnership with the province. And that's to advance local needs so that we can support thriving communities in Nova Scotia and respond to our residents. So I always say a rising tide floats all boats. So when we're successful, it contributes to the province's success. So aren't you lucky today? The NSFM appreciates first that Bill 186 provides an outline of the roles and responsibilities of both the Minister of Emergency Management and the newly created Fire Commissioner position going forward. So that's great. FSAN's recommendations for comprehensive province-wide standards and establishing a centralized provincial body that is solely responsible for fire prevention are supported by NSFM. So I just wanted to make sure that that support's put on the table right away. We do recognize that Bill 186 is a step forward in laying the groundwork for a fire prevention framework that will deliver what we all need is consistent levels of service, the training, the certification, the equipment procurement for all fire organizations across this province, much needed. It will require all municipalities, of course, to conduct a fire protection service review, ensure local firefighter competencies, training, personal protective equipment meet the service standard identified through their service reviews, of course, and participate in a common records management system. So for us, Public Safety 101, it's important that we all get there. Of course, our membership, NSFM, again, all municipal units, our membership is eager to understand how the changes outlined in Bill 186 will work in practice. Always lots of questions, and we're on the ground for this. So, we expected, of course, the questions. I'm sure you did as well. We also know this legislation is a positive starting point for the development of provincial standards. As we keep saying, the service, the training, the equipment, everything that this fire services encompasses. We acknowledge the province's commitment to taking the time to implement the significant changes over the next 3 years. It's not going to be easy, but you know what? If we were in this for easy, we probably wouldn't be in it. Although we appreciate that there are demands and pressures for the province to make the changes quickly, fire prevention is too important to not get it right, and taking the time to do it over those 3 years is really important. Sort of sounds, Minister, sounds like another public safety file that someone has. Starts with a P. So we know the roadmap for a new fire prevention model will take time, and rightfully so. There are still several key aspects from the FSAN's review that need to be addressed, and this is our members, of course, asking for this. So I'll start by, while Bill 186 does not change Section 293 of the Municipal Government Act, meaning that municipalities may still provide fire and emergency services, but are not required to do so at this time. Our members do understand that municipalities will undoubtedly play a significant role in the future state of fire prevention in this province. So there is a general understanding there. Municipalities hold a wealth of local insights and dedication to address local issues, but municipalities will be challenged by any new financial implications arising from this new model, which I'm sure you weren't even expecting me to say anything about finances. We can all agree, I'm sure, that a significant challenge for the current fire prevention framework in Nova Scotia is, right now, that variety of funding models that municipalities use to support the fire prevention services. And this isn't about my town, but I know the cost to us because we have our own paid fire service, but it's in the millions. So for others, municipal area rates, general levies, those types of things are primary funding sources for fire prevention. In addition, there's always independent fundraising by local fire departments, and that's necessary due to the ever-growing demands of municipal budgets. But this revenue, as we all know, that's hardly reliable or sufficient. You can only do so many, bake sales, but I'm okay with bake sales. Locally determined levels of funding contribute to fragmented and inconsistent level of service across the province, despite the indiscriminate province-wide threat of fire. So we're all under that threat, but everything's different, which we all know. Without province-wide investment and efforts, the capacity of fire departments will continue to be determined by the local ability to finance these services, and we can't let that happen. What we're saying is simply placing new responsibilities for municipalities will not be an effective way to improve and modernize fire prevention in Nova Scotia. Instead, fire prevention services will be improved through a partner-based approach in which the provincial government and municipalities work together to ensure necessary financial and regulatory resources are available so that we can reach a high level of service to the public that we're all looking for. We recognize that cooperation and ongoing engagement between municipalities, the province, fire service partners, that's critical over the next 3 years and ongoing to achieving successful outcomes for this incredibly important file. So NSFM is committed to working in partnership over the next 3 years to support our members and advocate for opportunities to engage with the province on fire prevention to ensure that the service is reliable, sustainable, and effective for all Nova Scotians. This point is hugely important. Our members know themselves best, and NSFM knows our members best as a whole. So, ensuring continued engagement and a seat at the table is important. We've been there so far, and it'll greatly assist in getting the job done. So short and sweet, thank you again for your time. We're happy to answer any questions you may have, and by we, I mean probably Evan. So.
Great, thank you very much, Mayor Mood. We appreciate your submission here. We'll now open the floor up for 5 minutes of questions. MLA Hanson.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you for coming and presenting to us. I think that's great. It's always good for us to have different perspectives around the table because, you know, we get a better understanding when we talk with each other and we have these conversations. So what I'm hearing is, and maybe you can correct me if I'm wrong, just because I want to be sure that, you know, when we are discussing this bill in the House, I want to be able to have the lens of multiple aspects. So I'm hearing from you, like investments would be great, it was mentioned by a colleague on the government side that 50-50s are supposedly like the best way to fundraise because cuts are happening, so we got to make sure we have them bake sales with 50-50s. But when I say investments, when I say investments, I mean, you know, the government has a responsibility to make sure that we have what we need, especially when it comes to the municipality. And then you also mentioned a seat at the table. I'm grateful that you have a seat at the table, but we also heard from some other folks here this morning that are saying that they want to make sure that all voices are heard, and that is reflected in the regulations. So I'm curious to know, like, what you think about that, or if that is something that you're thinking about. Oh, wait.
Just a second, Mayor Mood. I have to recognize you, so they turn your mic on. Mayor Mood.
I'm not used to that. I'm used to sitting in your seat at the head of the table. So the question was about all voices, and I don't disagree with that. I think when it comes, you know, municipality-wise, we do represent all municipalities, so we're not going to speak for one or the other, but to ensure that all of those voices that are at the table. Evan, there's been some consultation, and, you know, all those pieces have been taken care of so that all those voices are being heard. And as well, if you're asking about other voices, I mean, obviously FSANs and the various fire departments, I speak for my fire department. I could do that, but I couldn't speak for, you know, a volunteer one that's different. Evan, anything else you want to say?
We have time for maybe one more quick question. Any questions? Oh, Evan, would you like to chime in there?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. All I would really like to add from Pat's comments is, like she mentioned, we have been engaged in conversations with the province over the past couple, or earlier this month. And I really want to thank our members for participating in these really important conversations and providing their insights and perspectives on, you know, fire prevention in their areas. Their input was invaluable. And we acknowledge that the province probably gained a better understanding of the level of work that is expected and has to be done over the course of the next 3 years. So the success of fire prevention really hinges on collaboration with the province and all municipalities, and we look forward to working in partnership together to make sure that we get this right.
Well, thank you very much. That ends our time for questions. We appreciate very much for you coming on virtually today. Hope the weather's fine in Yarmouth and you have a great week. Thank you very much.
Always fine in Banana Belt.
We'll be down to visit you soon. All right, we'll call upon our next witness. We're switching bills, so this will be now on Bill 196, the Community Colleges Act, and we'll call upon Billy Comeau. Well, thank you very much, Mr. Comeau. Could you please identify yourself, what organization you represent, if any, and please identify how you'd like to be referred to.
My name is Billy Comeau. I am a private citizen here today, and you can refer to me as Billy.
Great, thank you very much. You have 10 minutes for a presentation and then 5 minutes of questions from the committee.
Thank you. As I said, my name is Billy Comeau. I'm here to speak to the amendments to the Community Colleges Act. I spent nearly 8 years as a communications advisor at NSCC until 2019, and 5 years in the same capacity at Dalhousie University before that. I hold a degree in political science and history from Acadia and advanced diploma in public relations from NSCC. Having studied and worked within both these systems, I have no hesitation defending their value and the many benefits they bring to Nova Scotia. I'm here today as a private citizen, speaking for myself, because I care deeply about this province and I know exactly how vital higher education is to its future. First, let's be clear that higher education is not an expense, it's an investment, and one of our most powerful economic engines. Our universities and NSCC contribute over $3.5 billion to the economy every year, NSCC being half of that. That's over 800% return on investment. Together, they support over 20,000 full-time jobs, attract over $150 million in federal research funding, rank as the province's second largest exporter, strengthen local businesses and communities, attract national and global partners, innovate in clean energy, healthcare, and technology, and support the arts and culture community, which, as Tim Houston said in 2015, is vital to the economy. NSCC and our universities create problem solvers, innovators, and community leaders who build and sustain this province. Just look at our cabinet. The 20 cabinet ministers hold post-secondary education, including 85% with university degrees. It's hypocritical for those who benefited from taxpayer-funded education to make it harder for others to access the same opportunity. Any government that cuts education funding or undermines institutional independence isn't defending Nova Scotia. Nowhere is the value of independence clearer than in NSCC's success. For 30 years, NSCC has operated as an arm's-length, independent public institution under a Community Colleges Act. And under that act, it's governed by a Board of Governors, audited annually, and held to the same financial accountability standards as any government department, but with the flexibility to operate more efficiently, innovate quickly, and respond to real-world challenges and needs, not only political ones. The results speak for themselves. A graduate employment rate above 90% for more than a decade, nearly 90% of graduates working in jobs related in their studies, 94% graduate satisfaction rate, 93% of graduates staying and working in Nova Scotia. That's the product of independent governance and professional leadership. NSCC is led by educators, researchers, and administrators who make decisions based on evidence, not ideology. Trust me when I say these are some of the most dedicated people you can meet, some who could earn more elsewhere, but they all choose to educate and serve Nova Scotians, turning every public dollar into more than $8 of economic value. Cuts to this group are just plain misguided. This government wants to fix a problem that doesn't exist. The proposed amendments to the Community Colleges Act would transfer the authority to hire the NSCC president from the Board of Governors to Cabinet to appoint the president, embed the Deputy Minister of Labour, Skills and Immigration directly on the Board of Governors, and allow the minister to appoint members of the Institute of Skilled Trades Council and define its composition and term limits. That's not modernization, it's political control. When decisions are made at arm's length, they can be based on expertise and data. When they're made for political theater and gain, they're driven by optics and ego. And once you politicize the presidency, you politicize priorities. You insert a deputy minister on the board, you replace expertise with bureaucracy, politicize programming decisions, and diminish its integrity. Once appointments to the Trade Institute become political, they can be based on political calculations, cronyism, and public trust erodes. An independent NSCC has been able to launch a wind turbine technician program, which seems very timely given recent news, to be selected by the federal government to develop Canada's first DEP interpreter program, to be the lead post-secondary institution in the establishment of COVE on the Dartmouth waterfront, and that will be the home of the newly announced Maritime Defense Innovation Secure Hub, to continually respond to the needs of healthcare and continuing education and continuing care sectors, so companies like Shanex can meet the needs of their clients, to anticipate future needs when it began investing in mobile trades training nearly a decade ago, and thanks to that foresight, they're delivering programming in Digby right now. To build meaningful relationships with the Mi'kmaq and African Nova Scotia communities, not just paying them lip service, but actually working with them to build programs that work for them, to be present in their communities and commit to continuous improvement. And I've had the privilege of speaking with NSCC students, graduates, and employees who tear up when speaking about the impact the college has had on them, their families, and their communities. With business leaders who value and depend on the NSCC for their workforce. With refugees who fought through hardship none of us can imagine, arriving in Nova Scotia eager to contribute, and thanks to NSCC, became invaluable community members, contributing to the betterment of the province, culture, through culture, healthcare, IT, the trades, and more. And with instructors like Tim Webster, a research scientist at COGS, whose expertise and work with bathymetric LiDAR technology is critical to coastal zone management in Nova Scotia. These represent just a small sample of NSCC's impact, and all of this has happened under independent leadership and governance, not ministerial micromanagement. The NSCC board already includes diverse leaders from across many sectors who challenge, question, and guide the college responsibly. I've been in that room, I've seen it. It doesn't need political supervision. What's the problem? Instead of celebrating a public institution that works, the government's threatening it. I don't know if it's the Huron Consulting Group or the Fraser Institutes that have recommended it, as these groups work with our government, that are working with our government, are known to advocate for austerity in higher education, for cutting positions, programs, and funding, specifically in arts, culture, and social programming. But I think Nova Scotians should be deeply concerned that our government values partisan advice from two organizations with no roots in Nova Scotia and track records of attacking public services and education, instead of experts in our province. Huron Consulting is an American corporate consultancy that profits from restructuring and privatizing public institutions, not from building them. They believe educational institutions should be subject to the quarterly whims of corporations. And I ask why a premier who is warning of the threat of Trump in the United States is using an American consulting firm with similar views to Trump to determine the future of our educational institutions and the province. I've already outlined how our institutions like NSCC are delivering measurable results. These are facts, not theories. We don't need foreign consultants to tell us how to run an educational institution that's already working. Nova Scotia's success is built on community investment, not imported austerity and privatization. NSCC is not a political pawn. It doesn't belong to a premier or the cabinet. It belongs to Nova Scotians. It's a trusted, high-functioning institution. It connects accessible education, training, and opportunity across every region of the province. And when you weaken NSCC's independence, you don't just harm an institution, you harm communities from one end of Nova Scotia to the other. And building on that, I need to say that our universities and NSCC may serve different purposes, but they have shared goals. Separating them under different departments divides a system that should be working together, fragments policy, isolates the college from natural partners, and weakens collaboration. Dividing and weakening this sector is economic self-sabotage. It will drive people out of the province, weaken industries, stifle innovation. Now, can our post-secondary system be improved? Yes, but that doesn't mean it's broken. Can they coordinate programming in a complementary way to meet the needs of industry? Yes. Can they also coordinate programming to ensure programs are offered that go beyond the needs of a select group of industries favored by the government? Hell yes, and they should. And can all of this happen while improving oversight, yet remaining independent? Yes. And that's why the amendments to the Community Colleges Act have to be abandoned. So the Premier says his government's job is to manage the province finances. And this budget is a clear betrayal of that. With a supermajority, this government has silenced debate, slashed revenue streams, gutted arts and culture, and now wants a more centralized control of a valuable institution. It's not management, it's political arson. And how can we trust the government with a provincial jewel like NSCC based on what we've seen? Nova Scotia needs leaders who understand that a government budget is not a household or business ledger. It needs elected leaders who don't use cliches about belt tightening. Leaders that understand education is the most important and reliable investment we can make. NSCC isn't broken. It's one of the few systems that works. It's a model for Canada and beyond. Can it be improved? Yes, but that doesn't mean it's broken. Injecting partisanship will threaten and weaken the college, its independence, professionalism, and community connection. We need to increase support, not cut it. We need to encourage collaboration and cooperation in higher education, not divide it. And we must keep partisan politics out of higher education. And I know all of you already know this. You know when NSCC thrives, when our universities thrives, then Nova Scotia thrives. That's how higher education works. There simply doesn't exist a problem to which these changes in this amendment are the fix. Thank you for your time.
Thank you very much. We'll now move on to questions from committee members. We have 5 minutes. Questions? MLA Wilson.
Thank you for that. I've been learning lots about this bill. I've been listening to people. In the charitable world, we often have corporate sponsors on our board of directors because we rely on that funding. But from what I hear you're saying, it seems like having the funder in the governance model directing the delivery of service is a conflict of interest. Would you agree with that?
Mr. Kamal.
Yes, I would. Higher education is an area where you need people who understand, you need skills and that are developed over time, and you need a group of people working in that system who understand that. And a board that is diverse and appointed based on the systems that the Board of Governors is now is more likely to steer it in the right direction as it has than one that is making those decisions on political whims. Education is not a small endeavor. We know degrees and things take years. There's no reason that it should change so quickly, government to government, and that's why it shouldn't be political in that case.
Any other questions? MLA Wilson.
The other NSSC certainly has an excellent reputation of delivering high levels of post-secondary education in the trades. In the 25 years I've been here, I've seen it grow to be one of the best in the country. What I wonder about that is is that excellence developed through governance, and isn't it in that governance it's because you have people from the trade sector driving the curriculum and understanding the skills needed for the province?
Mr. Camo.
Yes. I haven't worked there for 7 years, but my understanding of it is still very similar in that the people who teach the programs and educate are people from industry. The people who build the programs are people from industry, and they are all educated in education delivery, but also come with industry backgrounds. They have relationships in industry. And as a graduate of that program, I can tell you it works very well. People line up, companies line up to get those graduates, to get those people, because they know they're getting people ready for the service that they're going into.
Any further questions from committee members? Seeing none, we thank you very much for your presentation, and we look forward to seeing you again.
Thank you.
That is all the presenters we have for this bill. I'll ask for a motion from the floor to report this bill back to the House. Mr. McGowan.
I move the presentations on Bill 196, Community College Act, be concluded. I move that Bill 196, Community College Act, be reported back to the House.
Are we ready for the question? All in favor? Opposed? Motion is carried. We're going to revert back to Bill 186, Support for Fire Protection Services Act. We have three presenters from FSANS, Greg Jones, Rod Nielsen, and Nick Power. Would you please come forward? Good afternoon, gentlemen. Thank you for being here. Could you please introduce yourselves?
Rod, excuse me, Rod Nielsen, First Vice of the Fire Service Association of Nova Scotia.
Greg Jones, President of the Fire Service Association of Nova Scotia.
Power, Second Vice President of the Fire Service Association of Nova Scotia.
Thank you, gentlemen. You have 10 minutes for a presentation, and then we'll open the floor for 5 minutes from questioning. Please go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you, committee members, for allowing us to have the opportunity today to sit here in front of you and bring some greetings from our association. First, I'd like to start by saying the Fire Service Association of Nova Scotia, we're dedicated to providing leadership and representation for the fire service all across our province. Working with government, also working with the private sector, and also for the citizens of our province. We do so by developing and evaluating, consulting, and communicating policy through various ways of consultation, through research, and through education in matters of fire and public safety. We appreciate the committee's time today and attention to this bill. We acknowledge and the intent behind this legislation that it brings today, and also we acknowledge the move that this will make for the fire service to move it forward in a meaningful and respectful way. For more than 50 years, the fire service has partnered with our partners, and we have contributed to numerous reports and studies on fire services for improving fire and emergency services in our province. Unfortunately, many of these reports have been shelved, they've been ignored, and they've been left unimplemented. FSANS recognizes this history, and it is for that reason that we continue to encourage government to move forward finding ways to make meaningful and respectful change. We see this legislation as introducing with the intent of creating real positive change for the fire service to move us all forward. Last fall, FSANS had the proud opportunity to release and formally present the government with the Fire and Associated Services Governance Study after months of engagement with fire service members. This comprehensive report reflected on the voices of the firefighters from every corner of Nova Scotia and laid the foundation for a safer and more coordinated and more sustainable future for the fire service delivery. This study was developed following extensive engagement with our fire service personnel, our professionals, our political leaders, our municipal leaders, and emergency management partners all across the province. It identified critical gaps in legislation, governance, training, funding, and dispatch systems, and most importantly, firefighter health and wellness. With that being said, there were 40 very clear and actionable recommendations that were designed to modernize and strengthen the fire service delivery in our province. Since the release of that report, FSANS has continuously called on the provincial government to not allow this to be ignored, to not be another report to be shelved. And we've asked government to act on the recommendations and work collaboratively with FSAN and our partners and the broader fire service to implement meaningful change. Key recommendations from the study included the creation of a single purpose Pacific Fire Safe Services Act to replace the fragmented and outdated current legislation we have, the establishment of the Nova Scotia Fire Commissioner to provide oversight and leadership, the development of a province-wide training standard and a provincial training system, the implementation of a standardized dispatch system, enhancements to mental health supports, cancer prevention initiatives, and the workers' compensation coverage for all firefighters, sustainable funding model to reduce the reliance on volunteer fundraising, and a provincial recruitment campaign to incentivize the support of the volunteer recruitment and retention programs that we all struggle with. Bill 186 represents meaningful change towards strengthening the fire service and ensuring that we're better equipped to meet the evolving needs of our communities moving forward. Over the past few months, through consultation sessions with fire service leaders and the engagement team from the province, I've had the opportunity to hear firsthand the consistent message again that we heard last summer, that fire service leaders want change. They want to know that there will be meaningful change and that the input they've not only provided this last year, but the last 50 years actually means something. And it's just not another report that will be shelved. They also want to protect the future for their fire service and their communities, and they're very hopeful that this time change will occur in a meaningful and respectful way. For far too long, the fire service has been overlooked, often because of the belief that firefighters will always be there no matter what and will do no matter what it takes. That commitment remains unwavering. However, now is the time to ensure that the fire service knows that their input matters, that their expertise is valued, and that its voice is a result in action. We acknowledge that not all recommendations from the governance study from FSANS will be fully defined in this bill, but nonetheless, we're very hopeful and extremely hopeful that government will continue to identify appropriate opportunities to move the fire service forward with strong oversight and governance as the guiding principle. Chair and members of the committee, I want to thank you very much for giving us a few moments just to give our input to this bill. We appreciate your time and consideration for this legislation and the commitment to public safety. But for all of us at FSANS, we want to make sure this is done right. And that's why we've ensured that we continue to advocate for collaboration with our partners to help government move forward in the right direction for not just now, but 50 years down the road when I'm long retired and gone, that the fire service will continue to move forward in a proper and respectful manner as we currently do today. Thank you very much.
Well, thank you, President Jones. We'll now open the floor up to questions. 5 minutes of questioning from the committee members. Any questions? MLA Burns.
Thank you, gentlemen, for coming out today, and I really appreciate hearing from you. We really appreciate all the hard work you do. In your view, what do you think of the bill as it stands today? What opportunities do you see?
President Jones.
Thank you, Chair. The opportunities we see in this bill today, it gives an opportunity for the fire service to be recognized, and also for the fire service to start moving forward in a new developed manner moving forward. The creation of the Office of the Fire Commissioner is a big deal for us. One thing that's been missed for a long time is that governance or oversight for the fire service, and also that it's in one department. Myself, President, I've been the last 4 years, and Rod was before me. We've seen the fire marshal's office move to numerous spots all over the place, and it's never been a coordinated effort. So one thing we see in this bill is that's the coordinated part we're going to get out of this for sure, to move everybody forward in a meaningful way that respects our needs.
MLA Wilson.
Thank you for your presentation and for your service. I certainly would support your request for standardization and leave you as firefighters to be the subject matter experts and determine what that looks like. What I'm not sure about or may have missing is the request for funding and the support that you need to maintain those standards. As I said to the minister in the legislature, we don't ask police departments to have bake sales or as they do in Greenfield, salmon dinners for police stations and police cars. Do you see the opportunity here for not only the need, but the opportunity for standardized and long-term sustainable funding related to this bill?
Oh, just hold on. President Jones, go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Apologize for that. I'm so used to just jumping in. I do see the financial aspect of this and the need for it. One thing that's in the bill that we're really conscious of is the fact around the standards for training and standard of operating. One thing that we really want to see is that there's some financial stability to allow volunteer firefighters and fire service in general in our province to not have to go and do the bake sales and the salmon dinners and the fish fries and all that. So they can concentrate on the training and for what they need to do at the end of the day. Far too often, folks go out and fundraise for simple things as fuel in their vehicles, when really at the end of the day, we want them to provide the service. Our members across the board will do whatever, no matter what, but we need that funding avenue there to support it. We know we have the Emergency Service Provider Fund, but we need more than that. And we need to ensure that the funds are there to support us so we can transition and move everything forward.
Thank you, President Jones. Any further questions from committee members? Seeing none, thank you very much for your presentation, and I'm sure the committee would all thank you for the service you do for Nova Scotians. As I said before, you run in the buildings when everybody else is running out of them, and we recognize that and the sacrifices you make, your members make, and your families make. So thank you very much for being here today.
Thank you.
Thank you.
That's all the presenters we have on this bill. So I'll ask for a motion from the floor to report the bill back to the House. MLA Oathit.
Thank you, Chair. I move that presentations on Bill number 186, Support for Fire Protection Services, be concluded. And also I move that Bill number 186, Support for Fire Protection Services, be reported back to the House.
Are we ready for the question? All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion carried. We'll now go back to Bill 187, Birthplace of Ice Hockey Act, and we will call forward a presenter, Jean-Patrice Martel, and this presentation will be done virtually. Welcome, Mr. Martel. Could you please introduce yourself, name the organization you represent, if any, and how you'd like to be referred to, please? Oh, there you are. Welcome, Mr. Martel. Could you please identify yourself, name the organization that you represent, if any, and how you'd like to be referred to by the committee? Maybe try to unmute yourself, I believe. There you are. Go ahead.
Apologies. The test went well. Okay. Yes, I'm Jean-Patrice Martel. While I'm former president of the Society for International Hockey Research, I do not represent the society. And in fact, while I was president, we updated the constitution and we wrote that the society would not take position on possible what's the term on debate. Yeah. So yes. So the society does not take position on debates. So I'm just representing myself. I co-wrote with two Swedish co-authors the book on the origin of hockey. And so we've studied the various claims about the history of hockey. You could refer to me as Mr. Martel.
Great. You have 10 minutes, and then we'll open up the floor for committee members to ask you questions for 5 minutes. So go ahead.
Thank you. So I have already sent an email to the committee pointing out that hurley was played on skates in Manhattan sometime between 1783 and 1791. I took that example. There are several examples of hockey-like games, but this one was actually using the same term as the reference from Windsor, and well, was older, as you can see. So this was taken from a book, and the reference goes the icy surface. I'll just read a small paragraph. The icy surface was alive with skaters darting in every direction with the swiftness of the wind, or bearing down in a body of pursuit of the ball, driven before them by the hurleys, while the hillside was covered with spectators, rising as in an amphitheater, tier above tier, comprising as many of the fair sex as were sufficient to adorn and necessary to refine the assemblage. With their presence served to increase the emulation of the skaters. So here we have a reference that mentions hurleys, mentions ball, also mentions skates, which the first Windsor reference does not do. So in my email, I also included the image of a print showing two young boys playing or about to be playing hockey. Or a hockey-like game with something resembling a puck in 1797. This is, and we use this actually for the cover of our book. So you can see he's got not a ball but a puck. So you know, the puck was not invented in Canada, at least not at first, though the term was used in Canada first. So there are many references to hockey-like games. There's hurley or hurling from Ireland. There's shinny or shinty or shamiar. I'm not sure how to pronounce that exactly. In Scotland and in England, there was bandy or bandy ball, and eventually they called it hockey. And we have a theory as to where the name came from, but I don't want to go there. That's not necessary for what you're considering. So to be very specific about this private bill, which is being presented and being studied, the first Windsor reference refers to events that allegedly occurred between 1800 and 1810, and I'm not using the word allegedly negatively, just saying it's a work of fiction. So it's possible that it does not specifically describe events that occurred, but actually I think there is a good chance that it does. But the reference does not mention skating. The second Windsor reference does mention skating, but it references the events that occurred between 1816 and 1818. So that's like at least 6 years later, maybe 15 years later. In the meantime, in 1811, we know that skaters with hurleys were also playing in Pictou, Nova Scotia, thanks to the 1895 book, East River Sketches, Historical and Biographical with Reminiscences of Scottish Life, written by the Reverend Robert Grant. And so the story is that a famous American wrestler came to town and challenged everyone to fight him. One did. And actually, the local hero gained an easy victory. So at this point, and now I quote the book, the assembled Blue Noses repaired to the ice on the harbor to skate and play ball. Then a message came from the Yankee who wished to wrestle again. So, quoting from the book again, nothing loath, skates and hurleys laid aside, there is another rush for the hole. So now we have a quote very close in time to the Windsor quote, and which mentions hurleys and ball and skates, and apparently used together. So, I mean, one can hardly decide whether hockey, or well, called hurley, was played in Windsor first or in Pictou first in Nova Scotia. So I think it would be maybe a bit of a jump to come to to decide that it was Windsor that was the birthplace of hockey. I mean, our research and our book have concluded that there is no single birthplace of hockey. The game evolved in many different places. I mentioned on the British Isles, Ireland, Scotland, and England, in particular in the east of England, called a region called the Fens, where the word hockey appears to have come from. So I do not think it's desirable to be determining by law, even if it's a private bill, that there is a single birthplace and that it's in Windsor, where it might have been played in Pictou first. I mean, we didn't find another reference from 1802, for example, from Pictou. I mean, we have what's available. So I may not have used all my 10 minutes, but this is what I wanted to say, but I'll be happy to answer questions.
Well, thank you very much, Mr. Martel. I'll open the floor up for questions from committee members. MLA Wozni.
Thank you, Chair. Mr. Martel, what, in your opinion, is the risk of a law that either inaccurately or in an incomplete way casts history in law in terms of public knowledge and a sort of understanding of of a game as important culturally to Canadians and people around the world?
Mr. Martel.
Thank you. Yes, I think the risk is that it doesn't teach people to about research. It suggests that history can be decided by politicians. I mean, there's a precedent in, I think, Indiana, where the politicians determined that they had found how to define the pi as a fraction, which we know is not possible. So we need to, on the contrary, send a message that we're open to research. We're willing, like I was when I wrote the book, willing to accept that Canada did not invent hockey, and we need to take research where it takes us. And you can always keep looking, and this is what I did as president, actually, because there was a Windsor claim at the time for which the Society for International Hockey Research published a study where they said, well, they haven't proven satisfactorily. And I thought, this is not a good idea. We should just encourage more research, because basically what the message was is, okay, well, you can stop looking. We've decided there's not enough evidence. And I thought, no, this is wrong. We need to keep looking. And so there are facts, of course, that are undisputable, but in this regard, I've given, I think, sufficient examples that these facts are not indisputable, that further research might turn out something new, and so we need to leave the door open. You can certainly teach, and I mentioned that in my email, the importance of Nova Scotia, and I would favor more the Halifax-Dartmouth area in that regard. because yes, the hockey was played there continuously since at least the second quarter of the 19th century, and it was from there that James Creighton brought hockey to Montreal.
Thank you, Mr. Martel. Any further questions from committee members? Seeing none, Mr. Martel, thank you very much for your presentation today. We appreciate you coming in virtually, and we wish you the best of a great day coming up.
Thank you for having me.
Those are all the presenters we have for this bill, so I'll ask for a motion from the floor to report the bill back to the House. MLA McGowan.
Okay, I move that presentations on Bill 187, Birthplace of Ice Hockey Act, be concluded. I move that Bill number 187, Birthplace of Ice Hockey Act, be reported back to the House.
Thank you, Mr. MLA McGowan. Are we ready for the question? All in favor? Aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carried. Now we'll go on to our last bill for today, Bill number 193, the Powering the Economy Act, and we'll call forward Casey Peterson.
Good afternoon.
Well, thank you for coming. Please identify yourself, how you want to be referred to, and what organization you represent, if any.
My name is Casey Peterson DeLong. I'm not here representing any organization. My views are solely my own, although I am a sitting municipal councillor. I'm here to speak on this bill.
So you have 10 minutes, and then we'll ask questions at the end, so go ahead.
Thank you. I feel that this proposed bill gives Nova Scotia Power yet another get-out-of-jail-free card. If Nova Scotia Power fails to meet its obligations of achieving 80% renewable energy by 2030, that responsibility is being transferred to an independent systems operator. The repercussions and fines should remain with Nova Scotia Power. This was a legislated, imposed target that they are meant to achieve, and they're still fighting a $10 million fine for missing their 2020 target of 40%. I don't want to see Nova Scotia Power weasel out of yet another fine or obligation or penalty. And given the deficit that we're being presented with, I feel that we need all the revenue we can get right now. Within this bill is also language about subsurface extraction of energy resources. The rush to extract resources as a means of improving our provincial budget sheet is not something that is within the elected mandate of this sitting government. And as well, I take exception to the manner in which municipalities are being dealt with. We are threatened with withheld funding if we do not go along to get along. I'm curious about the offshore royalty revenues and where the $7,000 per megawatt figure came from. The predicted revenue from offshore wind is, I think, $35 million per year, which is a pittance for what it's worth. We have enough offshore wind capacity to power the northeast of the United States. So it's been downgraded from $100 million per year to $35 million per year. I think that there is a lot of industry voices at play here, and the voices of Nova Scotians are not being represented. This was pitched as key to reducing our deficit by our Premier. And so I think we need to get as much bang for our buck as we can. Nova Scotia has historically undersold our resources, and I don't want to see that happen in this case. Given our massive debt, we have learned no lessons from failing infrastructure on previous energy projects, and we are faced with a huge opportunity now. So I'd like to see us get it right. There's much that can be learned from Scandinavia, for instance. They don't accept bottom dollar for their energy projects. We're signing agreements in Massachusetts, but in the next breath, we're saying that we're concerned we won't have any investors on this, and I don't think that that's reasonable. in a budget that is removing rebates for low-income energy assistance. We need to be defending Nova Scotians and giving them the ability to thrive. That's all I have to say on this, and I hope there's no questions because I'm obviously not an expert.
Well, thank you for your presentation. Are there questions from the committee members? MLA Mombercat.
Oh, we're good? Okay. Through you, Mr. I just want to say good to see you. Last time we saw each other, I was presenting down at council in Modal, so appreciate you being here. And it's good to see you.
That wasn't a question, but okay.
Are there any further questions? See none, thank you very much for your presentation, Councillor, and we appreciate you coming in today. That is the final presenter we have on this bill. I'll ask for a motion from the floor to report the bill back to the House. MLA Oathit.
Thank you, Chair. I move that presentations on Bill number 193, Powering the Economy, be concluded. And I also move that Bill 193, Powering the Economy Act, be reported back to the House.
Thank you, MLA Oathit. Are we ready for the question? All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion is carried. This concludes our Public Bills Committee meeting for today, March 2nd. I'd like to thank all committee members and presenters for joining us here today. The meeting is adjourned.